Hi, I'm Sifu Kuttel, and in this video we're going to be working with the Tai Chi Flute. So grab your flute or short stick and let's get to work. In this video, we are going to explore 4 important Tai Chi principles, Peng, Lu, Ji, and An. And we're going to do it with flute techniques. Now, I really like this because not only do you know ward off, roll back, press, and push from the grasp sparrow's tail technique, but we are going to be using the flute, and with the slight modifications that we'll be doing to go from the empty hand version to the flute version, we will also work with the versatility of the weapon and have a dynamic range of striking techniques, not just hitting with the front part of the flute. So I really like this as a way to explore both flute techniques and the versatility there, as well as the depth of our Tai Chi principles through grasp bird's tail. Now, before we get into this technique, I do want to make note that this is not from any traditional form. Yes, the grasp sparrow's technique is, but it's in an empty hand version. We're just applying the same principles with the flute itself. Now, with that said, all of these techniques will work, and it gives us a chance to look at different ways of using the flute that are more different than what we see commonly in the forms, as well as they are very good for close range. Now, don't think of this so much as step A will always lead to step B, which will always lead to step C, which will always lead to step D. That is irresponsible and unrealistic, especially when it comes to self-defense. There's so many variables. There's so many things that can change depending on angle, depending on timing, and depending on your strength and your attacker's ability to take a hit. So just think of this as 4 different options, and we'll combine them together for ease of practice. Okay, so let's start with a neutral position. I'm going to start with the flute in my dominant hand, and then I'm going to have my empty hand back, protecting towards the face, and we'll just have a more of an empty Tai Chi stance. So I have more of my weight on my back leg, less weight on my front leg. That way I'm able to step out and do techniques. Okay, now from here we'll go really into our Tai Chi mode. I'm going to step out. Make sure that toes are up here. Once I step out, the weight is still back on my foot. I should be able to just lift it up. And then when the toes come down, I'm going to shift forward, embrace, and bring the flute across. Now, we're not going to be using this as a strike. We are actually going to be using this as a block. Peng is ward off. We're having good structure. We're meeting the opponent's attack, and we're making sure that we're not going to crumple behind it. So this is just like having a good guard. Now you can think of your opponent coming in with a big hook, and we're going to catch it before it can swing around and hit us. So it's very important, once you're done, the tip of the flute should not be over to the side. The tip of the flute should be at your center line. The hand has to properly come across. Otherwise, we will not meet their punch, and we will be the ones getting knocked out. So again, from here, once I step out, toes come down, I'm going to shift forward and meet the punch. Good structure. Think about really bracing for impact here as they're swinging in for our Peng, okay? So again, right here, stepping, bringing this across, Peng, nice and strong here. Now our next technique is Lu, roll back. You can make it real fancy with the hands. We can really imagine what's going on here. Turning that palm, that empty hand, I'm going to turn that palm over, twist, bring that flute all the way around, pulling back, pushing down as I shift the weight back towards my back leg. Now what we're doing is we're extending their arm, and then I'm going to take the flute just above the elbow and apply pressure. So we have a standing arm lock here. I'm raising as well, giving it some counter pressure, and really trying to drive them down into the ground. Now, you don't have to worry about doing this whole hand motion. From our first position, we can just shift back. The principle is the same. But a couple of things I want you to pay attention to is your pressure, you should be thinking about closer to the hand. Further out requires a lot more leverage. Our hand will just probably move down. But if we have our hand, it's right next to our hand at the fulcrum or at the point of contact, we're going to have a lot more pressure and a lot more leverage here. Okay, now, as I shift back, my flute is not going to face the same line as I'm shifting back from. In fact, it's going to actually be perpendicular. So rather than being same one, I want to think of making a cross with my opponent's arm. Okay. So starting from the top, we have from our neutral position, I step out, brace into it, ward off. Now I can do that fancy version, twisting, roll back. Now from here, I've either been really lucky to block the punch and then pull them down into the ground, or I've managed to pull them closer. Maybe they bent their elbow, maybe they tensed up, maybe they're trying to pull back and we're in a game of tug of war and this just isn't working. No matter what, at this point, they are closer to me, so I cannot just withdraw and then try to take a big swing without them getting away. So we're gonna do a quick shift. From this position, I'm going to just simply turn my hand back, take my empty hand, place it on the wrist, shift forward, and then we're gonna be using the bottom end of the flute to strike. Remember, this is close range. I'm not trying to reach out here. They're not away from me. They're pretty much right in front of me right here. So it's a quick shift and I'm popping them. Now, typically we would aim for the solar plexus, but in the chance that they're already leaning forward because of the arm lock, we can be going right to the face, okay? Again, from our neutral position, we step out, Peng, ward off, Lu, roll back, turn that palm, hit with the bottom end of the flute, Ji, that quick press. Now in this case, we're gonna be using it more as a strike. But even if we do use it as a push, we could be digging into the ribs or solar plexus or side of the head and really applying pressure here that's very uncomfortable for our opponent, okay? Now we're gonna finish off with our last technique, last close range. We'll bring our hand back, we'll shift back so that we can get some nice driving force. As we shift forward again, we're going to press out. Okay, so this is typically we would just say on or push. But in this case, if we're pushing them away so we can make space so that we can get out, we could also use it as a strike. Okay, so we can shift forward and really hit with this one. You can hit to the upper body, to the torso, and kind of create a very aggressive shove, or we can come up from underneath and go up and strike towards the throat or towards the face, depending on what's open, depending on the situation itself. Okay, so now we've done Peng, Lu, Ji, and An. All right, one more time. From our neutral position, stepping out, Peng. We're gonna do that quick roll, Lu. Press with the bottom, Ji. Shifting back, getting that hand in position, An. Now, I do encourage you, if you want to be more versatile with this and able to use it in more of a self-defense situation, do it faster. Practice with some speed, some combat speed. So from our neutral position, we step out, Peng, then we roll back, Lu. Now remember, Peng a little bit higher up on the flute, Lu is right next to your palm. Ji, shifting in, quick pop and return. And then shift back on entire body, okay? Again, from our neutral position, Peng, Lu, Ji, An. You don't really need to make it as fast as you can through this combination. It's more individual technique to individual technique. But really focus again on those Tai Chi principles, the timing of your stance as when you shift forward to finish, shifting back to finish, turning, prepping the stance before the strike. When we shift back here, turning those shoulders, turning the hips into it so we get a good strike at the end. Okay, so there you have it. Now, as you can see, I really like this way of exploring different ways of using the flute, as well as just a better understanding of our 4 important principles, Peng, Lu, Ji, and An. Now, you can see that we have a striking variation, we have a pressing variation, we have a combined strike with the bottom end of the flute, as well as a double push or a double strike. This can be quite devastating, and it's all really nice at close range because it efficiently uses the entire body. Now, I encourage you to explore other variations of techniques from empty hand forms with a weapon or some type of other implement, like a short stick or Tai Chi ruler or the Tai Chi ball, because these can all give you different perspectives of the same techniques and develop more depth in your understanding of it. Now, I do want to reiterate here, this is not a traditional way of using the flute. You don't find it in forms like this. I just find it as an interesting way to explore techniques that you will use the flute with, as well as practical techniques. Now, if you have any questions, drop them down in the comments below. Thank you guys so much for joining me in this video, and I'll see you in the next.